Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another installment of Friday Q&A. As always, thank you so much for this week's questions. I have really enjoyed reading through them and I'm looking forward to answering them. And if you have questions for next week, please put them in the video description. Housekeeping, as always, Ragdoll is running a little sale over on our Teespring store. So if you want to get some Ragdoll threads for 20% off, you can use the code BACK20 over on our Teespring store, and the link is in the video description there. As always, if you want to stream or buy some of our music, the links are in the video description as well. All right, shall we get into this week's questions? Can I do a video talking about how I would go through and demo songs and also talk about the writing process, either using a digital audio workstation or something like Guitar Pro? Yes, that's a video that I am planning on doing. Thank you to all the people who expressed some interest in that one. I have to admit I'm a little bit new to the Guitar Pro thing, and if you saw my Instagram yesterday, you know that I put up a video of a lick that basically I wrote in Guitar Pro and couldn't play, and I've been trying to learn it, and that one's still a work in progress. I've been watching a lot of videos by guys like Stephen Taranto and Charlie Robbins, you know, those kind of guys who are just ridiculous, and from what I understand, they use stuff like Guitar Pro as a compositional tool. And you know, I never thought about it that way. I always just thought, yeah, just play some stuff, and you know, if you got to tab some stuff out for people, then do it that way. But actually, you know, not having a guitar in your hands and trying to write a really interesting musical phrase and work on just the phrase aspect of it and then carry it over and actually have to learn how to play it, I found really refreshing and really fun. So I will maybe make that a multi-part series where we talk about like how you can use a tool like Guitar Pro to practice and to write, and then also how I actually go about demoing songs. So that would be a pretty fun one, I think. Why is it that when you dial in a sweet bedroom tone that you take it to a gig and it sounds really, really harsh? Well, I've talked about this before. It's been talked about at length on the internet. This is the Fletcher Munson effect. In short, basically your ears do not respond or are not as sensitive to all frequencies in the same way as you increase the volume. So if you go from a low volume to a high volume, your ears are going to be more sensitive, I guess, to that kind of like what I call the ice pick frequency range. Normally 3K, 4K, 5K really starts to sound pronounced and harsh and brittle. And if you're using a modeler or something like an Axe FX, I've done a few videos on how you can go about dealing with this, specifically how you can use a parametric EQ with a really narrow Q on it to basically surgically crop out those really harsh frequencies from your tone, so that when you do crank everything up at a gig, it doesn't sound too harsh. The other thing as well is basically dial in more mid-range or dial in less bass and less treble for those presets. So they will sound a little bit dull when you're playing at low volume at home, but when you crank them right up through a huge PA, you know, they're not going to feel like someone's stabbing you in the ear. And yeah, so go and read up about the Fletcher Munson effect, and you can trawl through my videos and find those tutorials where I'm talking about how to refine your guitar tones. Do I ever take a break from playing, and does it feel refreshing to do so? Definitely. I think this is a very underrated aspect of doing anything in your life. Sometimes you can really burn yourself out just by like playing too much or practicing too much. You can definitely fatigue stuff like your ears. You can definitely injure your hands and, you know, like basically adversely affect all the fine motor skills you need to play guitar. So looking after your ears, looking after your hands. Sometimes it's just nice to take a break for your brain as well and look after your mental health. That's you know, a massive factor in not just playing guitar well, but also, you know, living well and enjoying your life. So, you know, maybe rather than practice guitar for 8 hours a day if you want to be really good, practice guitar for 7 hours and, you know, spend 45 minutes going for a walk and getting some sunshine, and another 15 minutes calling your mum or your dad on the phone and telling them that you love them, or, you know, hanging out with a mate, or doing something like that. Because at the end of the day, you know, music and guitar should just be a part of your life. You shouldn't be putting your life aside just for these things. Anybody who's been a really successful musician or successful guitar player, you'll often find that, you know, they get to that point where it's like, okay, cool, obviously I love music and it's a massive part of my life, but like, you know, spending time with my loved ones, spending time with my family, spending time with myself, doing non-musical things is obviously really important as well. So I do find that, you know, if I'm just get nowhere with a musical idea, or, you know, every tone that I dial in sounds a bit rubbish, or, you know, if I'm having trouble finishing up a video or I can't speak on camera or something, I'll just go for a walk, or I'll go for a skate, I'll go for a swim or something like that. I'll pat my cat, you know, I'll talk to my wife, or, you know, like I said earlier, like I'll call my mum or something, and yeah, I find that that really, really helps. And just set it aside, forget about it, and you're not going to forget how to play guitar. I do remember reading this story. I think it was Marty Friedman. He was talking about how he like kind of injured his hand or something while Megadeth were recording an album. And he went to the doctor and he freaked out, and the doctor was like, "How long have you been playing guitar? 20 years? You'll be fine." And he said that, yeah, basically he, you know, he had to have like a month off, and he came back in and then he did all the solos and all the playing, and as he said, it was fine. So yeah, definitely freshening up is a highly underrated technique. Would I consider doing a video with like 5 classic hair metal licks in various styles? Thank you to the person who asked this question, because I will take any opportunity I can to go and play some like George Lynch and Paul Gilbert and Warren DeMartini stuff. I'll probably just have to like spend a bit of time compiling the licks, Nuno as well. And I mean, there's a bunch of licks that I've been playing for years and years that are kind of hair metal-y licks. Maybe it would be another one of those like how not to play kind of videos. But yeah, I'll go through and find, maybe I'll do like 5 players rather than just 5 licks, because I'm sure there will be more than one lick that I want to do for each player. But you know, I love George Lynch, I love Nuno, I love Paul Gilbert, I love Reb Beach, I love John Sykes. They'll probably be the 5 players, but if anybody has suggestions, you get them in the video comments, and maybe I'll make that a series, or maybe I'll just make it like an expanded video. Given the comments on digital modelers by guys like John Mayer and Keith Urban, what's my opinion? Well, John and Keith are obviously 2 of the most successful musicians and songwriters and guitar players of the modern era, so, you know, you can't just take their opinion with a grain of salt, because obviously they've probably tried everything, and they're guys who are probably just interested in what works. But at the same time, take it with a grain of salt, because, you know, I was reading that thing with Keith Urban where he was saying, you know, he owns like several Dumbles or something. That's going to cost more than most people's house, you know, so I don't know how much that experience scales to the everyday guitar player's experience. Or even if you should worry too much about what people like that do. Unless you're somebody who's a total like John Mayer freak and you want to go and have everything that John's got because you love his music and you love his playing so much and you want to incorporate his style into your own style, then that's definitely a great thing. Like, go down that rabbit hole. I don't want to encourage or discourage anybody from doing that. But at the same time, if you're like a metal player who plays an Axe Effects, what do you care? Like, you know, it's not even the same wheelhouse, what those guys are doing and what you're doing. And I find it much, much more informative and useful and pragmatic to just use the first thing that works and the thing that's, you know, just basically going to get you the most mileage and the most value for what you're doing. And there's kind of the irony in there that, like, if you want to be successful enough to play massive arenas, you're probably going to be really financially successful and you can probably afford to buy any gear that you like. But then because you're playing in a massive arena, monitoring live becomes like a real pain in the ass. So you're probably going to be using in-ears, so you're probably going to have your amps off stage and you're going to be miking them, and it's going to be processed and it's going to be coming out of a set of in-ears. So you could have all those amps, or you could just have an Axe Effects, and in that situation, I really doubt you would tell the difference because you're probably not moving any air on stage anyway. And furthermore, like, you're going to be way more focused on how awesome it is to be playing to a massive arena with people singing every word of a song that you wrote. And that element of it, I'm sure, is far, far more important than just like what you plug your guitar into. So yeah, you know, just don't go sinking anyone else's battleship, basically. Just try to enjoy what you enjoy. And I think the great thing now is that, especially like, say, with something like the Axe Effects, you know, there was that thing about John Mayer talking about the volume control response, and then there was a firmware update which gave us the gain enhancer, which is one of my favorite things that's been added to the Axe Effects, to kind of simulate a real thing that's happening when you're playing a really loud speaker and you're getting feedback through your pickups and your guitar. And we can now simulate that with the Axe Effects. And the feel on something like, I mean, I play the Axe Effects 3 all the time, so I'm specifically talking about that, but the feel is amazing. The new speaker impedance modeling is amazing. The gain enhancer is amazing. I don't miss amps. I will say that much. So also take that opinion with a grain of salt, because it works for me. It's not necessarily going to work for everybody out there. But I do know that a bunch of you guys watching love the way that your digital modelers sound and feel and how convenient it is. So yeah, guitar's pretty awesome. That's all I can say about that. Guitar is definitely awesome. Use whatever you like. How and why did I start a YouTube channel? You know, this is a question that I ask myself all the time, and a few of you guys pointed out the Guitar Hour podcast, the latest episode they had, where Tom Quayle's also talking about, like, is it worth starting a YouTube channel in 2019? And I've seen a few other YouTubers talk about the same thing recently, and I must say as well, thank you so much to Tom for all the kind things that he said about me. If you guys don't know who Tom Quayle is, like, what are you doing on the internet? Go and type Tom Quayle into YouTube now and check out this guy's playing, because it is truly remarkable. And yeah, anyway, he had a lot of nice things to say about my channel, which was totally surreal. Thank you, Tom. Lemonades are on me if we ever get a chance to hang out. Nevertheless, he made a lot of great points about, you know, doing the YouTube thing. And for me, if you go all the way back on my channel, I've kind of been like intermittently uploading stuff on YouTube, but it's normally like, oh, I've got this video on my phone that I want to send to my friends of, you know, my cat or something like that, so I'll upload it to YouTube because then it's easy to send. This was, I think, before YouTube became like, you know, the biggest game in town for marketing, and now I obviously treat it as like a highly curated online presence. You get the YouTube version of Leon, where I'm always in a good mood, I'm always pulling tones, I'm always doing what I like, playing guitar, which is totally cool for me. I really love the feedback I get from the channel. I do it because, you know, it's nice to help people, but it's also a creative outlet for me. Like, I'm somebody who can't really sit still for too long, so if I'm not like doing a gig or recording or writing songs, making videos about guitar gear and guitar lessons is something that I like to do. So that's why I do that, and I think there are a few people who really encouraged me along the way. My buddy Johnny from Anarchy Audio, you've seen some of his amazing pedals featured on this channel. He was the guy who really pushed me a couple of years ago, who was like, man, go and do this, like, make videos about guitar gear. You've got a lot of gear, I can help you out, I can, you know, give you pedals to try out, I can give you ideas, and we've made a lot of content together over the years, which has been really fun. But he's kind of the guy who really kicked me up the backside to take it a little bit more seriously, and also my amazing wife, Elspeth, because she's a great photographer, she owns a great camera, and I use that for a lot of my early videos, and she really encouraged me. She was like, hey, you should go and, you know, like, get your own camera and get some good lighting. Just as an example, by the way, she got me these softbox lights. This is what it looks like when I turn them off. So this is like Leon's YouTube channel in 2017, talking about a preamp or something like that, and, you know, doing a bit of playing, and it's all out of focus. So for me, I better turn these back on. It's not only become a creative outlet, but it's become a learning experience. And the other reason that I do it is because of the relationships that I've built over it with manufacturers and with people who watch the channel and want to have lessons or want to talk about guitars or want to send me the music that they've made to listen to, and just kind of getting to know other amazing guitar players. Like, earlier in the year, I went to Boston to go to the Fractal Audio Axe Fest, and you know, I got to hang out with some of my favorite guitar players in the world. Like, it was a total trip to be sitting at a dinner table where there's like Jason Richardson at one end, Andy Wood at another, there's Mark Day, there's me and my wife, there's a bunch of other just people who are really active, like on the Fractal forum, and running into people who recognize me. It's like, you know, that aspect of YouTube that can actually connect people. And kind of guitar is a little bit like, you know, it's kind of a fandom, the same way you would have like a Comic-Con or something like that. And there's a hot take that I have to do at some point where I say that rock and roll is basically cosplay. Like, you know, when people are like, rock music is dead and it's no longer relevant, it should be. It's like, you know, when you go and, I don't know, see Motley Crue's 5th reunion tour, it's like, it's not really the same Motley Crue that it was in the 80s. Or you go and see Kiss, it's not, you know, really the same. Like, those guys don't live and breathe that anymore. That's totally their job. But, you know, we still go out and we still put on our denim jackets and our leathers and stuff like that. And, you know, for that night, we really live it and believe it. And it's kind of the way people do cosplay. Like, you know, you can dress up as Goku, or you can dress up as like the Rock version of yourself. So anyway, now total detour there. That's a future hot take video that I have to do. I need to do some more research into that whole kind of thing. Anyway, it is like guitars kind of got that aspect that of like a fandom as well. So that's super cool to be a part of, and that's a little bit about how I got into doing those videos. Like my wife and my buddy Johnny really pushed me into it, and I own a lot of gear, so I just started demoing it, and it was the feedback from everybody who watches this channel. You know, obviously if I didn't get any hits and I didn't get any comments, I'd just be putting these videos out into the ether when nobody would be watching them. But as I do that, I learn more about music, I learn more about video production, I learn all these kind of like important skills for me and for what I do, and I get to be creative. And another big reason I started as well was because I wanted to expose the music that I make with Ragdoll to, I think, some people who would enjoy it, who, again, are going to be people in that like guitar fandom. And so many of you have gone and checked out the music and bought the merch and done those things that it's made my tiny little brain explode. So that's how I got into it, and that's why I continue to do it. As for whether you should start a YouTube channel in 2019, it really depends on what you want to do. Like, if you're doing it for the right reasons, where you just kind of want to have some fun playing guitar, be creative, make some videos, whether they're like comedy videos, whether they're tutorials, whether they're gear reviews, whether they're sharing your experiences as a gigging musician. Like, there's a bunch of people who I really, really enjoy watching their travel blogs. They're like, you know, great session musicians and things like that, or great players. And yeah, it's very much become like the new place to hang out and share your experience with. So don't do it to make money. Don't do it to get free stuff. Don't do it, you know, to flex on other players and be a dick. Just if it's something that you feel comfortable doing, and if you feel comfortable curating this, like, you know, online persona via YouTube, building a little temple to yourself, then do it. Otherwise, just enjoy playing guitar. Like, you also don't have to play guitar to impress anyone other than yourself. It is a reward into itself. Anyway, I think I've waffled on for far too long. Thank you guys for watching the Q&A. If you've got questions for next week, get them in the video description, and I'll see you next week. Cheers.